Hola a todos! Today we are going to talk about the past progressive. Before we do, we are going to review estar. So go ahead and follow these instructions. Pause the video and complete the activity best you can. First, we translate. We're going to match what's on this side to the translation on this side. So en el concierto, that is at the concert. That's going to be E. Then en el teatro, that's at the theater. So that will be B. And then en el centro is downtown. En el parque is the park. And mirando una película, watching a movie. Because E says you were at the concert, you want to say you were. So that is estabas. And then for B, they were at the theater. Estaban. For D, downtown is I was downtown, so that's yo estaba. En el parque, we were at the park, is estábamos. And finally, mirando una película, watching a movie. He was watching a movie. That gives us estaba. Now remember, these are all conjugations of estar in the preterite tense. Remember that the preterite tense is used for things that are ongoing, that don't have a clear ending in the past. Today's goal is to talk about the past progressive in Spanish. Let's quick look at what the English is. What do these have in common? These should all have an ing on them, from running, raining, taking, studying, sleeping, and changing. They all also have was or were, saying that someone was doing something, or saying that people were doing something. So the past progressive in English is some form of to be, followed by a verb ending in ing. So in Spanish, it's going to be very similar. To be in Spanish is estar, but we'll want to use estar in the imperfect tense. And then our verbs here, they don't end in ing. Instead, they end in ando, or they end in yendo. Por ejemplo, tenemos yo estaba bailando, estaba nevando, I was dancing, and then it was snowing. ¿Quién estaba hablando? Who was speaking? Estábamos llamando. We were calling. Yo estaba diciendo. I was saying. Estaba lloviendo. It was raining. Estábamos pidiendo. We were asking, or we were ordering. ¿Qué estabas haciendo? What were you doing? Y finalmente, las chicas estaban corriendo. The girls were running. So our pattern is this guy right here. It's always estar in the imperfect tense, so we should change that to estaba, followed by either an ando ending or a yendo ending. This is our key idea of the day. Love it. Remember it forever. Nice. So we use the present, not the present progressive, we use the past progressive to say what someone was doing in that moment. Or before they were interrupted. What you were doing before you were interrupted. We are not going to do this practice. Nah. So let's look at a couple examples from the imperfect tense and compare it to the progressive tense. So the imperfect tense says something like yo caminaba, which means I walked, especially if it was I used to walk. That's something that I did habitually on a general basis. Por ejemplo, yo caminaba a la escuela en esos días. Those days, esos días. Man, I am struggling today, huh? Esos días. Those days, I used to walk to school. It was like a general thing that I did. This is in contrast with the past progressive. Example would be yo estaba caminando, which is I was walking. We would say yo estaba caminando en ese momento, in that moment. And that implies that the action was started but had not completed. It was ongoing. This is especially used if you were interrupted by something. Por ejemplo, si yo diría, yo estaba caminando en ese momento cuando mi mamá me llamó. I was walking when my mom called. Interruption. It's the best interruption. Love talking to my mom. So, let's see if we can put these into our sentences. Go ahead and pause the video and see if you can follow this model. Susana y Jorge estaban tomando el sol en la playa. Okay, our first example. Nosotros celebrar el año nuevo. We want to say we were celebrating the new year. To say we were celebrating, we say estábamos. And celebrar is an AR verb, so we have celebrando. Estábamos celebrando. Número 2, tú comer el postre. You were eating dessert. You were is estabas. Then comer is an ER verb, giving us comiendo. Estabas comiendo el postre. Usted cerrar la puerta. You want to say you were closing the door. So you were is estaba. Cerrar is an AR verb, giving us cerrando. Próximo. Yo hacer la tarea. I want to say I was doing the homework. I was is estaba. Hacer is an ER verb, so we have haciendo. Yo estaba haciendo la tarea. Y finalmente, ellas discutir la ley. You want to say they were discussing law. They were is estaban. And discutir is an IR verb, giving us discutiendo. Again, our pattern, we all have estar in the imperfect, and then an ando yendo verb. Now this is our pattern. This pattern up here that we love will always work, there are 2 spelling changes we need to keep in mind. These are the same spelling changes as the present progressive. We need to take into account our stem changers. We also need to take into account other spelling changes. So when we look at our stem changers, we remember that in the present progressive, stem changes only happen on IR verbs. So it will only be IR verbs. You'll notice that each of these stem changers are all IR verbs. So what this looks like is with pedir, instead of saying pidiendo, we will say pidiendo. Mentir, instead of mentiendo, becomes mintiendo. Servir, instead of sirviendo, becomes sirviendo. Finally, dormir, instead of durmiendo, is durmiendo. Remember that in the present tense we had E to IE verbs, we had E to I verbs and E to UE verbs. Here, the stems don't change into your IEs, they're just I's or just a U. If you want to practice it, you may follow this link. Nice. And then finally, in addition to our stem changes, we also have spelling changes. These will be our double vowel changes. This happens only when you have an ER or an IR verb and its stem ends in a vowel. So you have 2 vowels in a row, like in traer and in leer. So instead of writing I-E-N-D-O, we're going to make that a Y-E-N-D-O. So leer becomes leyendo. Traer becomes trayendo. For another example, if we had concluir, for example, that ends in IR, that becomes concluyendo with a Y. So in sum, make sure you always have your estar, your estaba in the imperfect, plus ando or yendo, or yendo. Now one final thought. Why does it make sense that estaba is in the imperfect tense rather than in the preterite tense when we're talking about the past progressive? Well, the idea here, remember, that the imperfect is all about an ongoing action. An ongoing. And the preterite is for something with a clear end, a clear start or end to your action. It's for something that is complete. Now, if you want to say what you were doing, that was an ongoing, it was happening for a while, that is imperfect rather than a one and done thing. Let's go ahead and write that explanation in your own words. I hope you enjoy your homework.